Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, first, just a little bit of housekeeping notes for you. So we've just as of today, we're recording this on Saturday, airing it on Monday. I know, we don't normally do that. But as of this weekend, we have our Discord up and running. It will be linked in the link tree going forward. So you should be able to get it. And if you get to it first, you can always message me. In fact, you know what? I'll throw a link in the show notes for this one, and then I'll add it to the link tree just in case. So if anyone wants to chat, if you want to see where we're doing some of our announcements for open calls for, hey, we're doing this panel on this date, you want to join us, it will be there. In addition to Three Ravens, it will also be in our own. And because we want to sponsor our own or prioritize our own, networking, if there's a priority will be given for people to sign up through our Discord versus the other or the Facebook, because we want to kind of encourage platform that is less likely to censor us. Because, sometimes they don't like sci-fi because it has pointy guns that point at the camera and stuff. It's weird. Right? Like, okay, so it'll be there. We're goofing off a little bit, but the Discord channel will be there. We have roles for everybody. If you're an author and you're joining a narrator, everybody that's just, part of the unwashed masses that like to listen and point and laugh, totally cool with that.
Denizens of the Empire.
Denizens of the Empire. There we go. The Empire did nothing wrong. Jedis are terrorists. Fight me. All right. So this is also Proof of Life. We've mentioned in a few episodes that actually haven't aired yet, but Nick, do you want to give them the quick update real quick?
Yeah. Due to the new administration and a uptick in op tempo, for those of you who are military vets or familiar with military terminology, you know what that means. I'm going to be busy over the next month. So you're probably not going to see my face too much on here. It's not that I don't want to be here, because there's some really good shows lined up and I would love to be here, but I don't think it would look as good while I'm all tacked out on a boat, dark as hell in the middle of San Diego Bay.
I mean, that actually might be kind of cool.
It actually might look cool. I'll turn on the red overhead, the tactical light inside the cabin.
I can see it now. We'll be recording live, and Nick will be like, "Wait, we've got a gunfight. I'll be right back."
Yeah, with my balaclava and my tactical helmet, my ANPVS 14s hanging off my head, because that's how old our technology is. So yeah, but in between that, on my days off, I will be doing Nick's Art House stuff. So I'll be doing drawings that are themed based on things that we do in the show. So I think the first one I'm going to lay up, I don't know when it's going to air, but it'll be, I'm going to do a live drawing of how I would perceive military tech in the future in a sci-fi environment. The next one after that would be military and how they're perceived in the comic book arena, capes and cowls, street beaters, things like that. So I got some fun themes planned. And so if you start missing my face, JR is going to have these files and he's going to post them at his leisure.
But I think if you're doing them live, you ought to record them and air them on your own YouTube channel. And then we can also link to that if that works too. Whatever.
I was going to do them strictly for the show. It's going to be a pure recording, no interruptions.
Oh, well, hells to the yeah, my brother.
So it was going to be Blasters Blades exclusive.
I dig it.
We've been talking about this for a year, doing Nick's Art House. So we're going to do Nick's Art House.
We didn't want and those are going to be bonus episodes because I don't feel like renumbering. Well, I'm going to have to renumber it, but I don't want to like change all my air dates. So we'll throw those up on Tuesdays or Thursdays or weekends, whatever, depending on how he gives them to me. I will hate my life as I have to renumber all the episodes in the file folder, but whatever, it's life. But these are bonus episodes as Nick can give them to us because, like I said, he doesn't want you to think he doesn't like you. And he might be around on Discord. I forced him to get an account and join our Blasters and Blades channel, and maybe Stabby will get one too. I don't know. I don't know if she likes us that much.
On Discord, if you get on the Discord, I think I go under ROTW. Let me see here.
You can go in the channel and actually change your name in the channel.
Nick owes me a drawing first.
I'm not changing my name to that. You know how many messages I'm going to get? It's going to be ridiculous.
So Nick owes me a drawing first.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, so we've got that going for us. And maybe if we're lucky, we will get a stabbing on camera, and who knows what could happen. Although that might be evidence, so we probably can't air that. That might be admissible.
Well, the announcement is so nobody thinks that Stabby actually snapped and offed me, and I'm buried on my own property somewhere.
I mean, I might have to look at what crime documentaries she's been watching lately, because that might give us our evidence.
It's all of them.
Stabby,
all of them.
Since this is horror genre, and we're going to go into the religion questions here in a minute, you watch a lot of these crime type shows. You want to talk about what you're watching and the channels you recommend for people interested in that? Because it seems every lady I know watches these How to Murder Your Husband and Get Away with It shows.
Yeah, so I don't watch the Murder Your Husband and Learn How to Get Away with It shows. I watch the How Did They Not Get Caught Sooner shows. But some of my favorite are, I love watching Mr. Ballin. He is actually a veteran as well, and he tells some of the best spooky, ghosty, and military themed, a little bit of medical mysteries in there. He's fun to watch, or just listen to when I'm doing the dishes. Rotten Mango, I absolutely love watching them. She gets really deep into stuff. Like, gonna throw this out there. I was not gonna read ACOTAR until I heard her talking through each book, and I was like, I think I need to read these books, and it actually got me back into the flow of reading again. So I always tell everybody, she has 3 different pages too. She has the true crime page, she has the books and movies page, and then she has her life page. So make sure if you want the true crime stuff, it's Rotten Mango. That's her true life or her true crime one. And then there's 10 to Life with Annie Elise. This woman is phenomenal in her tellings on true crime. She does a deep dive like nobody I have ever seen before. She will go to the courthouse if she can. She'll go to the trial if she can. She'll get the public documents to see what they're not telling us on like the national news and stuff. That woman does a deep dive like nobody I've ever seen, and I love watching her shows.
Okay. All right. So with that, let's get this show started. So first, the religion questions. What is your favorite horror movie, Stabby? Horror. Let me enunciate.
Horror. Oh man, there's too many. I am a slasher girl. I love me some Ghostface with Scream, and Trick or Treat is fun to watch. I love the Final Destination movies, but my all-time favorite has been and always will be, with my girl Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween.
Okay. What about you, Nick?
Oh man, I've seen so many horror movies in my lifetime. I'm not saying horrors. I'm trying not to get a flag here. Horrors. If I gun to my head right now, it's the Friday the 13th franchise. More importantly, Friday the 13th 6, Jason Lives. We get Kane Hodder playing Jason, and he ends up becoming like the blueprint of how you play Jason. The mask is really cool too, because I am recreating those. I spill shit everywhere. So, yeah. Huge Friday the 13th fan. So yeah.
Freddy either.
And well, coming in at second, and it's a close tie. Close second is the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as well. So those are the ones I grew up with. Those are the ones that I love. Those are my go-to relaxing horror movies. Yeah, I'm weird because I have those. Those are my top 2. So
I don't have a favorite. I am not a fan of this genre normally. I'm watching this as a fan service for our greatest fan, Stabby McStabberton, because she is a horror fan, and I promised her that if she puts up with my nerdy stuff, we would indulge her. So this is kind of us giving back to her. I did like the movie The Birds, the Alfred Hitchcock black and white, because I thought the acting was like, this is my hill to die on, but I think modern acting is not as good as it used to be because they rely so much on green screen and special effects. Whereas back in the day, they had to create the tension with their body language and their actual acting. And so The Birds was scary because you didn't see the birds at first.
All of Hitchcock's movies, the old joke is, what's the difference between horror movies and psychological terror or psychological thrillers? It's how much money it makes. So really, Hitchcock wrote all these movies to be horror, but they made so much damn money at their psychological thrillers. So you got The Birds, you got Psycho, you got Room with a View, you got North by Northwest. You got all these classics that just, it shows you that mankind is the real monster, unless it's a bird.
Yeah, it's just like I said, that's not normally my thing. I will do this. I do these because Stabby puts up with ours, even when Nick can't always make it. So this was something I suggested. Hey, like, I know this is your thing. Why don't we do? And the plan is to do one of these at least every other month or so. So there'll be, a couple of these a year because, like I said, she does the things for us. So this is us giving back. And then she is in the process of starting her own podcast, which the name is yet to be determined, but it's going to be for her steamy romance stuff.
We're not talking about it yet. That's the first drawing that Nick gets to do. Is he has to. I gave him the specs for my logo, and he is going to be drawing that up for me hopefully tomorrow, because tomorrow's art day, where we lock ourselves in the office. But once that logo is up and ready, then we can announce the channel and see if people want to come on and talk romantasy and fantasy and all that fun stuff in between with me. I know a few of our regulars have already, made it known that they want to come and join me for those chit chats, and I am all for it.
And this would be stuff that would not, it might be spec fic, but it's definitely more mature than what we do here. So we're splitting it off. And you even have another co-host lined up because she's cheating on us, Nick, with another co-host. I don't know what you're going to do about that. You might have to plant your flag a few times a week just to make sure that you still... See what I did there? All right. Since these are Stabby movie reviews, it's even in the title. A Stabby movie review is how we're going to label these. What qualifies as a good horror movie for you, Madam Stabby Stab?
A good horror movie has to have the right amount of tension, and it has to have a great musical soundtrack to it. If you do not have good music, you do not have a good horror movie. I'm sorry, but I don't care what anybody says. Green screen, no green screen. Everything had a great soundtrack to it. At least the good ones. We were just talking about Alfred Hitchcock. I love Psycho. I love Psycho so much, to the point every time that we go to Universal Studios, I make Nick take me on the backlot tour so I can go by Bates Motel and Mama's House, because I have to see it every time, no matter how many times I've seen it. And that, and he makes me keychain. But it's such a simple sound effect of him doing the and it adds to the tension. My child, my kid, he just discovered the Insidious movies, and he's like, Mom, every time something like the music gets really, really, really low, and then they hit you with that really loud note, that whoa, and he said, it sends me out of my skin. And I'm like, that is how you know you have yourself a good horror movie, because it has that notable music. So that's a must for Madam Stabby.
And just so that way they're easy to find, normally we have the playlist for what season it's in, and then movie reviews or comics or short content. They all have subfolders that are, YouTube calls them playlists. You can't really do that over there on BitChute or Rumble or on podcast apps, but on YouTube it lets you subdivide playlists for certain topics. So obviously we're going to make one specifically for Stabby movie review playlist, but it would also go under the movie reviews because, it's a movie review, and Spooktober for those around October who want to find everything we've ever done with Halloween-ish themed. And so it feels like it would qualify for all three of those. So that way, depending on what you're looking for, you can more easily find them. So that will be being added in the near future for that. But with that, Nick, what do you look for in a good horror movie?
We're gonna have to overly enunciate that word.
I am told I mispronounce words now with my hearing loss.
Yeah,
like they tell me I pronounce crown like you wear on your head. Crown. They say I say it wrong.
Crown.
Yeah, Stabby gets on me about that all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, let's get into it here. What makes a good horror movie for me? I've already covered it. Tension. I've always looked at horror movies like a roller coaster. So you should have these like climbing, like when you're climbing up on the roller coaster. So it's the build up, and then you get a quick little pause before it drops you down the oh my god, we're all gonna die. And then it slows you down and it speeds you back up. So it's this really interesting flow in these movies that, for me, if it has a good flow, if I'm getting built up, give me a chance to relax, and then just hit me with the oh my god, that makes a good horror movie for me. Also, I like gore. I want just blood spewing out of the bedroom while it's flipped upside down. I want it to hit the camera. I want it to be as visceral as possible. Like, I'm a real big fan of Eli Roth, who's known for that.
Oh, yeah.
His cameras probably have to be cleaned after every take because there's just blood getting splattered everywhere. And then, of course, you got to have a good villain. You got to have a good bad guy. You got to have a good whatever you're doing, whether it's the slasher, it's the haunted house. You got to have these really epic looks to them, and those are the ones that I'll judge them harshly based on character design. It's like, really, you're running from this dude with a clown mask? I mean, yeah, clowns are scary if you have that phobia, but if you're not scared of clowns, like, just hit him in the beak, But so that's what I look for.
Until his mouth's all.
Okay. And then to prove that we are still not knuckle dragging troglodytes, we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. What have you been drinking, Stabby?
Oh,
right now or in general?
Either or, dealer's choice. Answer how you see fit.
Well, if we're talking about coffee, I am still using up the last of my Coffee Brand Coffee Christmas selections. So I have the frosted sugar cookie and the gingerbread and the sugar plum. So we're still drinking those ones. They are so delicious. You get the good taste of the coffee, but the little sweetness in there of the flavoring. It's so good. I absolutely love it. But as for right now, I am drinking a beer, a Kona Big Wave Liquid Aloha. We found them at the store. They looked good. They taste good. I like them. So new staple in the Stabby household.
My favorite beer I can't get anymore because the liquor store went under because of the bug that we're not allowed to talk about. And so it just didn't survive the purge. But Bikini Maui Blonde Lager is delicious. And the where they grow their hops is an old pineapple field, so it adds a little bit of unique flavor to the beer. And I like blonde lagers. Like, everyone thinks light beer when it's lighter. That doesn't actually mean it's the weak, Milsner or Bud stuff. Light beer and dark beer are just brewed differently. It's how they're made that makes them light or dark. I like a good light beer. I like them to be flavorful, though. And the blonde lager from Bikini Maui is delicious.
This same brand, if you can find the Kona Big Wave, they do a blonde ale. And that's actually how I found this company, is I found the blonde ale first, and I fell in love with it.
Now, a blonde ale and a blonde lager are not the same thing. They're similar, but they are not. Ale and beer is different.
No, I know that because we live surrounded by distilleries.
So what you're saying, if the zombie apocalypse comes,
but-
you've got enough alcohol to disinfect the world.
Yeah, and I have
Or
a vineyard
drunk enough
right across
that it ended.
I have a vineyard literally right across the street too. So, like my
Um,
gate, their gate.
I've been drinking a lot of coffee straight because I can't afford the calories. I'm trying to get my diet back under control. So I've been drinking a lot of straight, just 8 o'clock brand or Kroger knockoff of the French vanilla flavored. And I'll add a little bit of French vanilla flavoring, like the you would normally add to like a latte, the flavor syrups. I'll add a little bit of that because I get the no calorie ones, which probably means I'm like going to turn into I don't know, some sort of mutant test subject with all the whatever that's not sugar they put in there. But I've been drinking that, and then I bought a lot of Coffee Brand Coffee's hot chocolate over the Christmas period because I dig pepper and hot chocolate. So I've been drinking that for my liquid calories right now because I realize if I don't drink it, it might actually go bad. Normally, so their packages are resealable and they will hold unless you let your teenage son open the package, and then he rips the ability to reseal it, which means shelf life.
Yep, that's the bag of chicken nuggets in the freezer.
But so that's what I've been drinking. And then if we're talking about adult beverages, I bought a bunch of like bourbons to sample because I figured, I'm not in the army and a young private drinking whatever the cheapest rot gut to get drunk is. I can drink things just because they taste good. And so I've been going through a bunch of samples of stuff. I got one of our listeners, Cole, has been putting me onto it. So I've got a recommendation for a lot of them. He even sent me a sample of Blanton's, which I guess is a pretty good one. And so I got the Tennessee honey because I just went by the mini bottles that they sell at the liquor store to try out a bunch. And I didn't like it by itself. It went in smooth, and then it left that cheap beer aftertaste. I'm not sure how you would describe it. Like I said, I'm not a connoisseur, but it works perfectly with a Jack and Coke, the Tennessee honey Jack Daniels and Coke. The flavor of the honey and the Diet Coke mix perfectly. So.
See, Nick likes a lot of bourbons, and the only one that bourbons and whiskeys, but the only one I get behind, I love my Jameson whiskey, and then I love the Bullet bourbon for my coffee. Those are my two favorite out of the bourbon and whiskey group of things. But if we're talking about coffee, I was just telling Nick about this the other day, and I'm a little upset about it, is there were these instant coffees back in the 80s and 90s. They were in little square rectangle tins. And you just took a scoop, stirred it into warm milk or warm water, and it gave you an instant coffee. And I can't remember what they're called. They had some French name to them. And my mom always told me that they were for adults. They were adult drinks. So I held on to that for so long. And I just remembered a couple weeks ago, and Nick looked it up for me, and they discontinued selling it. So I'm finally an adult, and I can't even have that coffee.
Well, I guess that means you're not an adult. You're still a kid at heart. So you can still go to Toys R Us. Still go to Toys R Us and play with Legos. But yeah, I've been trying new things just to see what I like. I'm a lightweight because I don't drink like I used to, which is a good thing. I don't plan on redeveloping that habit. So I just drink just enough to enjoy the flavor and enjoy the experience without going nuts. But I was told to properly enjoy a bourbon, I need to get a Glencairn, I think he called it, the right kind of cup. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be glass. And then if I want to add to chill it, not ice, because that will water it down, you get like metal or glass cubes that you put in the freezer, and then it adds like an ice cube, but it doesn't actually melt and become.
The only problem I have with those is that they heat up so fast. Like you'll have to have a whole bunch of them in the freezer and replace them if you're going to have more than one, because that one, it's going to chill your drink, but it doesn't last very long. Not like ice, and I like ice too because it waters it down a little bit, so you're not getting completely schmammered. If you're. Well,
I got a just a generic like little tumbler that's the wide low one, and I keep that in the freezer shelf on the desk or in the in my office mini fridge, and so it's always chilled. So that works for me. But I mean, I tend to do that as I'm winding down with the writing is when I tend to drink it, so that works. But We'll see as I develop what I like and don't like. And Pittman gives James J.E. Pittman, who's a frequent guest of the show, gives great bourbon and whiskey advice. So if you want to, join him. In fact, you know what we have to add? We need to add to our Discord because it's not there yet, a food channel, because we spend so much time talking about beer and liquor and good food.
Oh yeah.
We need to add a sub channel about the eats. We can share recipes and pictures.
I agree with that. Because between Stabby and I and some of our listeners too, that
frequent guest of the show, Jana, or Jenna Ray, if you prefer. She is always cooking up the good stuff, so that would be kind of cool too.
Always sharing pictures of our food in the group chats on the Facebook. We should probably move that to the Discord. Chats of the show or eats of the show. We call it something like that, but I don't know. But like everybody's making some really good stuff, and I'm like, I'd be eating something that's like really, really good. Someone will post something. I'm like, oh man, how'd you make that? That looks delicious. As I'm chowing down on my own really good food.
So we're going to call it the Foodcast, and it will have a sub channel for beverages, for food, and then recipes if you want to share those. If it's your grandma's top secret recipe and she will haunt you if you do, well, I mean, that's up to you. Do you like poltergeist or not?
We have sage. It'll be all
right. The blasters. I was going to call it the Foodcast because that's what we call it on the scroll bar at the bottom when we get a little too talky about food.
Yeah. No, that works for me. Foodcast works.
I mean, Blasters and Booze could be our alternate title, but I dig it. But yeah, so all right, so that's what we're doing for coffee and tea and all the good stuff. Now this, let me pull this cover up.
Oh, I'm drinking decaf, by the way, since we didn't get to me.
I thought you already talked. You were joining Stabby when she was talking.
No, I was muted. But since I can't enjoy, I had to go back to the well of Coffee Brand and bought a 5-pound bag of their decaffeinated. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's got the flavor. I'm like of the belief that decaf is useless brown water, but no, it's good. And we'll just circle back to Coffee Brand, our lovely sponsor.
Oh, and if you are international, this does not get us any money because obviously if you buy it on Amazon, we're not getting the kickback because you're not using the code. But if you want to support them and you're not in the continental United States, free shipping, Amazon Prime, they sell it on Amazon. Coffee Brand Coffee is on Amazon. Go, if you buy it, leave a review. If you want to say you heard about it through the Blasters and Blades podcast and maybe they know they, keep us around a little bit longer, that would be cool too. Although we only get paid when people buy with the code. So at this point, I'm sure we're just blowing smoke in the wind because we're our biggest clients right now.
We are, and you should never get high off your own supply.
We forgot that memo when we started selling coffee.
We're all fiends. We're all coffee fiends.
All right, so this is where I'm going to pop up the cover because we've realized, Nick and I in the pre-show, that every time we did something horror or horror adjacent, we would talk about the same book because it's the only one, Gears Inferno by Paulie Cooley. It's the only one we had a commercial for. So one, I'm going to record a commercial for this. And two, I'm going to let my own book, which is horror, space horror, sci-fi horror. And we're going to do that today. So we're going to throw that full screen and maybe I can clip this if it's good. Or I have to reread it a bunch of times. Who knows? All right. You ready for this? All right. Savage skies. Through the tumultuous... Man, I wrote this and I can't pronounce it. Through the tumultuous waves and eddies of life, choices come and go. Not everyone makes the right call. Not everyone gets a second chance. But when that opportunity arrives, even fewer are bold enough to take it. Enter Staff Sergeant Daniel Caldwell, conflicted, determined, haunted. Can one man find forgiveness in a sea of guilt? Will he take advantage of a renewed prospect, or will he drown in the coming tide of chaos? When the monsters of his soul conspire with the demons of the living, it's a war on two fronts. Strap in and prepare for the ride of the millennia as one man tries to find redemption, all while desperately attempting to keep the members of his spear alive. Dun, dun, dun. And if you didn't know, in this standalone novel, SPEAR is an acronym for the Space Marines Orbital Unit. So basically ODST, but not ODST because that's copyrighted.
Yeah, we don't want to get sued.
Yeah, don't sue us, bro. We're too poor for that.
Yeah, we're so poor.
And now that we got that out of the way, and then like 28 minutes-ish, do you want to show the trailer and then we'll start talking about the movie?
Yeah, sure. Let's get it going. Let's add that to the stage here. Add to the stage. on.
Coffee break, coffee.
Why is that not working?
Coffee back.
JR, maybe you can do it. Can you add it to the stage? Or did I screw it up? I screwed it up. It's always Nick's fault.
There we go.
There it is. All right, cool. Let me get this going.
I had to remove the Savage Skies image.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay.
It's my fault.
Well, sometimes it's
It's
JR's
already
fault.
our
I don't know.
fault.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Nope.
Whoa. Mom, Dad, you gotta come see. The birdhouse is so fast. You just gotta come on. Whoa.
Having spoken, the doomsayer departs.
Come on.
Why don't you get Billy dressed? I'll take him into town with him. Hit the store before it gets all bought out.
How'd you folks hold up in the storm?
Big insurance day.
Sorry to hear that.
What's going on?
It's death.
Something in the mist! Shut the doors! Shut the doors!
The only way we're going to help ourselves is to seek rescue.
Tie this around your waist.
For 4.
Well, let us know you got at least 300 feet.
There's nothing out there. Nothing in the mist.
What if you're wrong?
Then I guess the joke would be on me.
It is time to take sides. Read the good book. It calls for blood.
Guys, I hear something.
Those bugs?
Not like any I've ever seen. The entire front of this store is plate glass. Promise you won't let the monsters get me.
What are you guys messing with up there?
I thought that there were other dimensions. They wanted to try and make a window.
Well, maybe your window turned out to be a door.
Who she's gonna sacrifice to make it all better?
We want the boy.
You try it.
All right. Well, so would that make you want to watch the movie?
Oh, absolutely.
Not me, but I'm not, like I said, this is not my genre, but Stabby.
Yeah, of course I would. I mean, first and foremost, everybody gives Stephen King so much of a hard time, and I get it. I get why. But the one thing he can do is put the weirdest monsters in front of you to make you kind of second guess things. And I think that's what they did with The Mist. They put some of the weirdest monsters there in front of you to kind of just like, what if? And I absolutely loved it. So yeah, absolutely. I would watch. Actually, I think that trailer is how I initially found it in the first place. But
Have you
absolutely.
read the book? Well, novella, The Mist.
I have not. So once upon a time, I owned all of the Stephen King books, or at least most of them, and a bunch of his novellas. And I was living in Illinois. My basement flooded, and all of my books that I bought in the process of moving from Nevada to Illinois, which were most of my Stephen King books, they got completely destroyed because my basement looked like a pond. So I did not get to read it. I have yet to replace it. But yeah, Stabby's library was very sad because all of those books I found at little antique stores between Nevada and Illinois.
So I have not read it, but I hold a grudge, and I do not like Stephen King. It's not just his politics because he's a jerk on Twitter, or until he complains about Twitter and goes somewhere else and then comes back because nobody else was listening to him on the other platform nobody else went to. But when Nick and I were in Iraq, Stephen King was quoted as saying, and I know they've tried to retcon this, but I watched the live feed of it, so you're never going to convince me. But while we were in Iraq, he told this group of kids to study hard, because if not, they'll be stupid and end up in the army in Iraq. And I never forgot. So him and was it Glenn Carey, I think, was the other one. The weird looking guy from the Northeast. He's a Democratic politician. Him and then JK were all saying not nice things about the army because he was sent to war by politicians of both parties, mind you. And so I kind of hold a grudge to all three of them. So I've never read the Harry Potter books. I don't read Stephen King anymore. And I couldn't vote for the other guy anyway because I'm not in his district. So, I mean, all I can do is shake my fist at the sky for him.
I mean, if anybody out there follows Madam Stabby or my other alter ego, the one that's married to Ranger Nick, I don't do the politics thing. I don't. If you know me, you know where I stand. You know where I draw the line in the sand. But outside of that, I do not play the politics game. And I can hate you for saying some nasty things because obviously I'm married to Ranger Nick. And we support the military in this house. I have a folded flag literally right above my camera. But I can still read the books without thinking about who wrote them. I think that I can kind of separate the two. Does that make sense? I can
does, and normally I can separate the art from the artist, but I was a very formative time in my life. If I separated the artists if I couldn't separate art from their artists from their politics, or other things I disagree with, I'd never get to enjoy anything. But those three that said that was like I said, I was literally sweating, bleeding, and fighting and dying with friends overseas, and for them to say that, I never got past it. So,
my little brother,
my own bias.
One of my little. Go ahead.
No, that was it. I said I will admit my own bias on that one, and that's why.
Yeah, no, my little brother was one of my little brothers. He was in Iraq during all of that craziness, and I feel it. I absolutely do. People that don't serve or aren't serving really should keep their mouth shut about it. I do.
They
absolutely.
We fought for the right to have opinions, and they can have wrong opinions. We fought for the right to do that too. That's just one moment in my life where it was said at a point in time, and I'm like, I can hold a grudge. I don't even necessarily blame the people that protested because that's their right too. It just those three with their platform, it just hit me the right place at the wrong time. So, but this is not the political show because I will make both parties hate me. I'm a small libertarian, so I get hate from both sides because no matter which side wins, the other side says it's my fault that they lost. Because if we'd have just ignored our principles and voted for them, and I've heard it from Republicans and Democrats, people, so it's bipartisan crap fest. And so with that, we're going to show the image that is on the movie poster. Why isn't it? Oh, add to the stage. There we go. The image is because if you actually get the actual movie poster, it's so small that when I try to zoom in so you can read the other stuff, which is like the movie stuff, it pixelates. So this is the image. Or if you prefer, we can get the Spanish language movie poster. See, it's the same image. Coloring's a little bit brighter. This is the English version, and you'll see what I mean where it pixelates.
Yeah.
But at its core, this is the image, just a red instead of yellow.
I think they nailed it. Poster? They nailed it. They really did, because you're not through the whole movie, you're not really sure of what's in the mist. And that's exactly what they give you in the poster. You're not exactly sure what's causing all that mayhem.
So first with the mist, you see the arch. It almost looks like a globe, and I'm thinking of that one Under the Dome series that came out. But then you realize the arch is supposed to actually just be the windows of the place where they're at, the grocery store in this case. But at first I thought that was supposed to be like a dome. And then you know what is in the mist very quickly when they go in that back room, and you know what it is because I've read Cthulhu. I read the Eldritch Horrors by Lovecraft, and I know exactly what inspired Stephen King on this because he barely shaved the serial numbers off, but it's okay because this Lovecraft is part of the public domain. It's not like copyrighted anymore. It's too old.
Yeah.
But this was very obvious Cthulhu, Eldritch Horror, Lovecraftian, Elder Gods.
Yeah.
So
I had read some interviews after this movie came out when they talked to Stephen King about it, and this was definitely heavily inspired by Lovecraft. So it was kind of like his love letter to Lovecraft. And like you said, like they barely got the serial numbers off because it's very old gods. It's very Cthulhu. I don't like this poster because it's showing it's almost like it should be a poster for This Is the End, as opposed to The Mist. Because you don't get to see all the mayhem apocalyptic shit that's going on. This one's probably better because it does add that little interdimensional kind of feeling, that very eerie cosmic type thing going on there.
So since you're talking about the vibe, this is some of what we're talking about. This is the vibe. It's all misted and gray. Where we talk about the Eldritch Horror, if you look at, and the graphics on this held up. I mean, it wasn't green screen nonsense. This was good props.
No, it's good CGI.
See what I mean by Elder Gods?
Right here. Yeah, we got some Elder Gods here.
This is again, it's pixelated, but this is them in the mist. Now, this in the mist is how it looked on the screen because they wanted it to be almost like the mist was thicker than mist should be.
Yeah, it was. It's almost its own character.
Yes.
So kudos to to Frank Darabont on that, who's had a phenomenal career after this doing The Walking Dead. And you notice, if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, there's a lot of actors in this movie that you recognize that were also in The Walking Dead. So, oh God, the end right there in the gut.
All right, so now that we got the images, so you can kind of see what we're talking about. Let's put your beautiful faces back on the screen. So let's talk about the movie. Obviously, it is called The Mist. So, yes. We're spoiling the heck out of it. The title right there is The Mist. It was obviously based on a novella written by Stephen King. We've kind of mentioned that. It was directed by Frank Darabont of The Walking Dead fame, as Nick has told us. The budget was $18 million, and it earned $57.3 million when it aired.
Definitely got its money back.
It made its money back. It was 126 minutes long, or 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Of pure awesomeness.
That's up for debate. It was released in the United States on November 21st, 2007. It says Show East release date of October 18th, 2007. I think that was a film festival. We couldn't confirm
it was. It is.
But
I Googled it real quick.
Yeah, so it was released in the U.S. wide in November 21st, 2007. We did not get international air date. We just couldn't find that information. It was distributed by Metro Goldwyn Mayer and Dimension Films in the UA, and the Weinstein Company for International, or USA, not UA. And the Weinstein Company.
America.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it would be UAE if it's what I thought it was, United Arab Emirates, but it's not. It's the US. Right. And the Weinstein Company for International Markets. And for ad copy, I found one and Stabby found a different one. So I'm going to read mine. We'll pause. Then I'll read the one Stabby found. And you can tell me, Nick, while she goes and refills her coffee, what you think is the best one. So, a freak storm unleashes a species of bloodthirsty creatures on a small town where a small band of citizens hole up in a supermarket and fight for their lives. Dun, dun, dun. And then Stabbies. After a massive thunderstorm, an eerie, unwavering fog descends upon a Maine community. Locals seek refuge in a grocery store from the monstrous creatures now roaming the countryside, killing everyone they encounter. Oh, crap. Hers is better.
Yeah.
I should have read these first, but I wanted a blind read reaction.
Well, the one Stabby, we pull a lot of things from IMDb. That's kind of our go-to source of like, who's that actor and where do I know that dude from or that gal from? They do have some really good ad copy, and they pull it from multiple sources, like multiple press releases. So Variety, Hollywood Fair, all those things. They pull it from that, and they kind of like let you choose. But they all kind of say the same thing. Some of them embellish a little bit more than the others, but
yeah, no, it's cool. All right. So with that out of the way, and we did talk about the elder horror gods. First, let's go into the army in the beginning. So first off, this was set in 2007, where our uniforms were still the uniform of the day. So I loved seeing God's camis, the olive woodland pattern camouflage uniform that I wore, that you wore, that God wore. God blessed. Ignore that nonsense they wear now. It is not as awesome. You did see the PFC and the PB2s that were about to go on leave before our deployment to Iraq, because again, 2007 when this movie was released.
We had the GWAT going on.
The GWAT was going on. They are wearing their spiffy Class A green uniforms. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I miss those so much.
I
mean, don't get me wrong. The pinks and greens are cool, but the greens were the shit.
Cool that they wore it in the World War II, but the pinks and greens don't let them wear the green felt Army small unit leader tab that I slept on. In fact, my platoon sergeant gave me the ones he was given after he came home and got promoted after Vietnam. So like I still have them, and I have no one to pass them on to because they don't use them anymore.
No, I mean they went away with the ASUs, and then I was kind of hoping they would do it again with the pinks and greens, but they didn't. So unless they bring the greens back, I don't think we're going to see them again.
I know, but you had to be company grade. You had to be an NCO or an officer leading a small unit. So fire team, squad leader, platoon sergeant, platoon leader, first sergeant, company commander. That's it. Battalion and higher did not qualify. Small unit. So company grade, leadership position, or higher. It's not even as a sergeant wasn't enough. You had to be in charge of troops for combat units.
Yeah, you had to be a team leader.
But no, you could be a team leader of a non-combat unit. You didn't rate it.
No, you had to be a team leader in a they had a specific term for it, like a combat. Not it was a fancy way of saying combat unit, like a forward advancing unit or something like that.
Yeah, and so as an infantryman, when I was a team leader as a sergeant, I qualified. He gave them to me. That was very emotional for me. When I got promoted, this was obviously after like the Starship Troopers came out, because that was years and years ago. And so when he penned me, he's like, Sergeant Handley, these are yours until you die or I find someone better. When he promoted me, he paraphrased the Rico getting promoted.
With what's his name? Rotchak?
Yeah, Rotchak would be. That was the speech I got. Like, don't F up or I'll kill you or fire you, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, great motivational speech there, Sergeant.
No, that's good though. That motivates you.
But he also is the one. He was very nice to me when I got promoted. You know how to do the blood stripes?
Yeah,
they don't do those anymore.
We don't talk about that because that was never a thing.
No, it's not a thing anymore because it's not politically correct and it's too, hardcore. But in my infantry line company, we did those. But he was a big dude. Like he was, he hurt his knee, so he got kicked out of a University of Maryland where he was a lineman, and so he lost his deferment status when he got hurt, which meant he went to Vietnam. So he was like 6'4", big burly dude. Like, and he hit my stripes first without the tabs underneath, so it hurt like a mother, but after him I felt nothing, so maybe that was kinder.
Mine got stuck in my collarbone on the left side.
The one on my right was the one that got stuck, and I had to get the little screwdriver to pop it out. I didn't feel it.
Garber. He's got a Leatherman.
Right, I didn't feel it after he hit me, so I think that was actually the goal. He was being nice in doing it that way.
Fun times.
Oh, we did have a guy whose the pips broke off, and he had to like pull it out because it broke off in his shoulder.
Let's get back to the movie.
So back to the uniforms. Okay, so the uniforms were cool. I didn't recognize the MP uniform that was the straight khakis. That was an older uniform. I don't think we were wearing those anymore. That looked like Vietnam.
Yeah, that was definitely a throwback to the 60s and 70s when they wore the khakis for the MPs. That was like their Class Bs. I mean, they brought them in this movie. I don't know. It looked cool. I like the throwback. They had the little white helmets.
With the white MP hat and the little armband and all the
and the what the hell is that thing called? I don't know. Armband.
There's a fancy name. It's probably French. We can't pronounce it, so who cares?
Like an epaulette or something.
Yeah. So he had that. Even if you notice when they kind of show him fall later, when you re-encounter him, he had the baton too. Like he had the accoutrement of the 1970s quintessential MP.
Yeah, the old nightstick. Yeah.
Yeah, the wooden one. The
old thumper.
Yeah, Johnny Be Good stick.
Yeah, Joe Be Cool.
And the first guy that runs out and you see him screaming. Well, you don't see him, but you hear him screaming as he runs out. And this is how you know there's something really in the mist. It's not that old guy panicking. They zoomed in on his car, which was my first car, a 1979 Ford Ranchero. Ooh. And that's what he was driving. He called it a car. It was a car that couldn't decide if it was a station wagon or a truck.
It had an identity crisis, that's for sure.
It did. So it was like, respectability up front, country boy in the back.
That's right. It was like a car version of the mullet.
It exactly was. It was a car mullet, a cullet, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't sound.
I'm rocking the mullet right
now. Like Stabby's hair right now.
Right. So that was kind of cool. I dig it. So first off, we'll talk about the characters. One, this irritated me a little bit, and I'm not even particularly religious, but Stephen King does this all of the dang time. He makes the religious people out to be the crazies, and this one never failed. The schizo lady was a Bible beater.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But she wasn't even like a Bible beater in the true sense of the word, because it's like, if you listen to her preaching, she forgot the New Testament existed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She went fire and brimstone. She went Old Testament fast.
I have seen when I was in undergrad, I went to a reenacting event as part of an extra credit because I was taking military history class. And they actually, it was a treat. There was a guy who was a local minister, but he was a reenactor as well. And to justify his time spent reenacting, every Sunday at a reenactment, he would trade his, soldiery uniform and he'd put on the preacher uniform of the day, and he would preach a memorized Cotton Mather, fire and brimstone speech from the era. And so I have heard that, and I'm like, this is like eldritch horror level scary that he's describing. Like, I get why people were listening. So I recognized some of what she was preaching in hers. Of course, he sounded more eloquent than she did. Eloquent. So yeah, that was interesting. But let's talk about the characters writ large. What did you think of the main character? So the main character was the dad, his son. I'm horrible on names. I'm drawing a blank. The dad, his son, and the blonde lady.
Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. So David is David, Amanda, and the son. I don't know the son's name. Oh,
his name was Nathan Gamble.
Nathan?
It was Billy Drayton.
Oh, Billy. Okay, so yeah, David, Amanda, Billy, which is weird because the lady that plays Amanda, she played Amanda in The Walking Dead too. No, the characters were they're really good. It really kind of brought you in as like if you were actually in that storefront with them while this was happening. What else can I say about this? The character David, he's just a guy trying to look out for his kid and probably keep some sort of sanity going on when all the insanity is happening around him. So he's a little bit of a skeptic, but he's also the first one to kind of become the true believer and like convince the others, like, hey, this is what's happening. They're like, oh my God, what are you doing? No. It's like, okay, no, this is what's happening.
My thoughts on this is, one, Ollie, the store manager, turned out to be a hardcore badass, and I did not expect that from him. And everyone else was like looking at him like he's a old man or pushover. But when crap hit the fan, the brash talking guys were cowering in fear, and he was like taking that axe and giving that monster what for. And then he did it with the stabby stick, and he did it with the revolver. He's the only one who could shoot the pistol, and I can feel for him because when I went through the pistol range, at the end of the day, my instructor told me I would be better off throwing the pistol at them and then getting my rifle because I with the pistol. So I
shot him with the pistol. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, just throw the pistol at him, go to the pistol foo, and then move on to something else. Yeah, I'm trying to, channel my inner
John Wick his ass, and then go get your rifle or a pencil.
Basically. So I liked the Ollie character. He was the unsung hero of this. I liked Granny, the badass, when the religious lady goes crazy. She starts throwing cans at her head. She's like, hey, the Bible says we can stone people we don't like too.
Yep. Yeah, turn it up on her. Turn it against her. That was awesome. There's so many dynamics going on. Oh yeah, there's so many like dynamics going on amongst this group, and you see that divide later on in the film. They start going towards the crazy lady, and then there's the side that's like, hey man, you kind of seem to have a good head on your shoulder. And then there's that one dude, his neighbor.
The black lawyer character who was paid by
Brent
Norton.
Grant Norton. He's like, yeah. I was like,
He's Andre Brower was the actor. I've seen him in some stuff.
Oh, he's been in a lot of stuff, mostly TV.
He was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine is where I know him from.
Yeah. I think he was the chief, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
He was the chief. He's a good deadpan character, straight face, very like a Miles Teller type character as far as his delivery. But, even him, he starts waving more towards the crazy religious side, which is weird because that's not how they kind of set him up as a character. And it was interesting to see that change when that happened.
But yeah, so the blonde lady her name was Amanda Dunphy, the one that brought the pistol because her husband was like, I'm not there to protect you a lot, so let's do this thing. She had some grit on her too. Like it was, when everyone else started going crazy, she was like holding it together like a champ. We talked about the Cthulhu. I will say I thought Amanda, the character Blondie, is how I wrote her in my notes. I thought she was a little too naive. Like she's like, human beings are basically good, and Ollie's like, no, lady, we're all a bunch of crazy psychos if given the chance. That's why we have government and religion.
Yeah, she was definitely somebody that's never left her hometown.
Yeah, it's definitely very sheltered life vibe going to me. Which you need people like that in the world. Bless their hearts.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought she as a character was a little bit naive. I thought the way they portrayed the townies versus the out-of-towners was kind of cool because this is Maine, where you get the idea it's like a vacation property town as well. So I thought that was kind of cool because it fits, small towns, like what they would see.
It was like every military town I've ever been to, but nicer.
Yeah, except for it's Maine, so it's also more expensive.
Yeah, their BH must be amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah. Are there mountains that close to Maine?
I have no idea.
I mean, because it was just anyway. Whatever. We'll give him some creative license. I will say, since we're talking about the characters, whoever acted that little boy, the son. Most of the time kid actors are hit or miss, or they're just doing good if they're just there. This kid had some acting chops. Like he sold the I'm afraid like the lines. Maybe they like poured water on him to hold the crying look. I don't know how they did that, but dude sold it. Like little man nailed it. I mean, he's an adult now if he's filming this in 2000.
His name is Nathan Gamble. And I mean, he's been in quite a few things. He was in Bones. He was in the Goldberg CSI, Dolphin Tale. So he's been acting since he was little. As for some of the other characters, like I was rolling through them because I was like, I know most of their faces. You have Thomas Jane as David, and he was in The Thin Red Line, Deep Blue Sea, Boogie Nights. And then you have Marcia Gay Harden as Mrs. Carmody, our religious zealot, and she's been in everything. But you have your Blondie, Laurie Holden, who was Andrea in The Walking Dead, but then you have Melissa McBride, the woman with the kids at home. That was Carol
in The Walking Dead.
There
was a lot of Walking Dead overlaps here.
Yes, and you had Jeffrey Demon. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was in The Walking Dead at one point too. And then you have Sam Witwer as Private Jessup, and there's two types of folks,
dirty.
Yeah. They did him so dirty, but he's known two different ways. You either know him as a vampire in Being Human, or as the voice of Darth Maul in the animated.
3 guesses on how Nick knows the guy.
Yeah, he was also Doomsday in Smallville.
Okay,
so he's been around. He's a geek alum. He's geek royalty. He's not Henry Cavill status, but he's close.
Okay. All right. So one thing I will say, now that we've talked about the characters, because I mean, I thought they were well acted. They were extremely believable. I have seen what the face of panic in emergency situation looks like. And I feel like they nailed that sense of tension. They did it well. And the jump scares, like normally I can time a jump scare and I'm like, wait for it. 1, 2, 3, jump scare. This one, right when I thought it was coming, they waited a few more beats. And so I liked that they did that. So it's, that unpredictability meant it still get they emotional, because if you read enough, watch enough, you can almost predict what's going to happen when. And because they added an extra long pause, which most people would say was an uncomfortable pause or a pregnant pause, if you will, it just, you didn't expect it. And I like that.
I did like they would pan over to the rolling door where Norm gets pulled underneath it, and you're like, oh my god, something's gonna come through it, and they spin around and you just see the feet dangling of the two soldiers. But they definitely knew how to play off of the tension and the fear, and there was a whole lot of look at this hand, don't pay attention to this hand.
So first off, Nick, were you watching this and thinking, of all the places I want to be stuck in a doomsday scenario, this is the worst place ever as far as defensibility goes?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the dog tag or the dog food bags, and then building the firing pits in them so you could look through them. That was clutch. Somebody knew what the hell they were doing when it comes to like the military side of things. So
yeah, they kind of improvised there. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking like, ooh, like as far as places to weather this situation goes.
I mean, it has its pros and cons. You're in a grocery store, so you have food and you have water.
Well, it was more of a general store even than a grocery store.
Yeah, but they still had they had canned goods, they had water.
No, I know, but the general store meant they had like some base antibiotics.
But they had some other things too. They had rope. They had probably some
grill,
medical stuff.
With the gas,
grill,
so they could cook
propane.
the food.
Yeah, and you could also use as
trees.
You could use them as IEDs if you needed to when it gets that dire. But it only had like maybe 3 points of ingress and egress. You had the main entrance. You had the
which is all plate glass, which is crap.
Yeah, which is not very good. You have to fortify that. But they also had plywood because it's a general store.
And that rolling door in the back was crap as far as it goes.
Yeah, the loading dock, that's really shit aluminum. You could get, if you're a giant interdimensional being, you could probably punch right through that.
Heck, the average door kicker in my rifle squad could kick through that. They are not that strong.
No, they are
honest people. Honest.
They are 10-ply, bud. They are toilet paper thin.
So we're good on the characters, right? We thought they did a great job there. I will say, in addition to that, I thought when it comes to individual scenes, the way they showed the MP as a host to the things, that scene was legit. Like I'm watching that, I'm like, yep, that's cool. I saw it coming, but it still was cool to watch.
Right.
And then in that scene where they go to the Granny, who was it? Private Jessup went. Who else was it? David Drayton, the painter, went. And a few others went, and they went basically next door to the soda shop and pharmacy.
Pharmacy, yeah.
You know it's a small town when it's two. It's a restaurant and a pharmacy. The soda shop is an old soda factory, from like the 40s and 50s, which I thought is kind of that's why those old towns are quaint like that, right? But when you saw all the spider webs and all of that, and then you see that scene with the MP, you knew like he was important when they made a big deal of him going in and telling the soldiers about to go on leave that they had to go back. That you knew something was up with that character, and he fulfilled that role later. It's the old Schrodinger's gun.
Schrodinger's cat.
Or his gun. Chekhov's gun. I don't know. It's a gun. It's a metaphor. I don't know.
No, Chekhov's gun. The one that's...
Yeah.
The mantle. That has to be used by Act 3.
Well, we should have called it Schrodinger, all right? It's there, but it's not there.
Schrodinger's had the cat. It was alive or it was dead. You didn't know until you opened the box.
2 states at the same time.
All right, I mixed my metaphors, people. All right.
No, I agree with you, JR. I absolutely loved the small town feel. It was actually filmed in Louisiana at a place called Tom's Market. But I lived in a small town like that in Illinois. And the movie rental store was also your hairdresser and your tanning place. And then the laundromat also had a movie rental store in it. So I completely feel the small town vibes when I watch it. But me and Nick rewatch this movie at least once a year, and ever since 2020 and that situation of 2020, I look back at it and I'm like, man, kind of reminds me of 5 years ago and how crazy people got over toilet paper.
So I will say, speaking of watching, you can watch this for free on Amazon Prime with ads. We've basically, with all the subscription models, reinvented cable at twice the price.
Yes.
But there's a few other platforms where you can watch it for free as well. I think Hulu and Netflix had it when we were looking.
Freebie.
Freebie, yeah. So it's out there for you to watch for free with commercials. What's back to that MP scene, the spiders that were shooting webs of acid. Yeah. That was cool. Like, you see them shooting the webs and you don't realize they're acid at first. And it's just like, holy crap, that is cool. And it shouldn't be possible because, right, acid should be eating up the host if it's able to have it in it. But it didn't, which adds to that, wait, these aren't your earthy spiders, right? Like, I thought that was cool.
Xenomorph vibes.
Oh, yeah. Definitely Xenomorph
vibes. So I really liked that angle that I like that about the show or the scene. It is telling that I don't know, the few times I've seen stuff written by Stephen King, it's always the ladies that go nuts first in his stuff. I don't know, maybe he needs to talk to a shrink about that, but it was definitely the lady that went nuts first with the preacher lady, the religious zealot.
Miss what was her name? Her name was Miss.
The one the locals know is crazy. Miss Carmody.
Carmody. Yeah, Mrs. Carmody. Yeah. Played by Marcia Gay Harden, and she nailed her role. There's no other words for it. She nailed it.
She's played crazy before.
She has played crazy before, but she nailed it.
So speaking of nailing it, the plot, I thought it was the art idea of it was good. I thought it paced along well. It didn't really lag in places. The pauses, like Nick was talking about, gave you room to breathe. I don't mind horror if it gives you an ending that was hopeful. Like, if there had been, like, at the end they were rescued, I'd have been okay with it.
Okay, so everybody out there in podcast land knows I did not warn JR about the ending of this movie. And as I got updates on how much time he had left, I was sitting on my couch cracking up, and he goes, "Oh, I have about 20 minutes left," and I'm just sitting there like, "Oh, here it comes," and he's like, "Oh, I got 10 minutes left," and I was like, "Oh."
And just so you know, we have a group with our frequent guests, the Shenanigans group, where we, they get, because they've come on so often, they get first dibs to come back for episodes. And I remember putting something to the effect of, "I hate you, Stabby," in there. You made me watch this. And then, of course, James Pittman couldn't make it, but he's like, no, it's good. It's good. I liked it. I'm like, you son of a biscuit eater. What the French toast is this nonsense?
It's horrible. It is the worst ending, but the best ending, because it breaks your heart. Like, there is no way to say it one way or another. Spoiler alert, you'll have a broken heart.
Let's not say how it ends, but I'm just saying they gave up at the end seconds before they could have had a better outcome.
If they would have waited 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
2 minutes and 30 seconds, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, and I don't know, it just, I hated you for that.
It's made several top 10 horror movie shows of the most kick in the gut ending ever.
Yep.
So speaking of shows, I thought the world building was well done. It's a modern world, so that was easy. So we'll focus the world building on how they set up the terror. I thought the way they built into it was good. Everyone thought they were crazy at first, like Old Man Thomas or whatever. I mean, I'm making up that name, but the guy running in screaming the warning, the sky is falling, and everyone's like, this dude's been smoking the good stuff. And then it slowly builds where like, oh, well, I mean, maybe something really is going on. So I thought the pacing and the way they did the world building was on point. I think Stephen King legitimately did a good job. If this was a faithful rendering, if not, Frank Barrett. Let me go up real quick. Frank Darabont did a good job. If it was him, whoever set the pacing of this, obviously there's creative license when you're adapting from film to books, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But the pacing and the world building, they did a great job. No complaints there. You guys agree with that? Or you got anything to add?
Absolutely agree. I think the thing that worked the best was when they were like trying to prove that they weren't crazy, and they were like, come back, we cut part of it off, it's still back there, and everybody walks back there and it's just gone.
No, you saw, they got to see it, and then it melted, and then when everyone else went back, because he took the small group, they saw it, and then in front of them it melted into mist and acid, which was an excellent touch. And then when everyone else went back there, they're like, yeah, right, you guys are messing with us.
Mm-hmm. They nailed it. Man, did they nail it. And I think that's like it's bad enough that you're stuck with a bunch of people that you don't really agree with in this grocery store in this horrible situation, but then the whole front of the store is nothing but glass. Like there was no winning, I don't think. I don't think there was a
lesson we learned here from Amanda's Colt pistol with only 12 rounds is never go anywhere without a full combat load. That was the lesson I learned, because it would have been a little bit different if they had better firepower.
Oh man, we live in the mountains, and when the clouds roll in, they like to sit right on top of our mountains. So there's times where we look out our front door and you can't see more than a foot in front of your face. And I'm like, close the doors, close the windows. We're done. We're not going anywhere. I know better.
Except for when I have to go to work in the morning.
I will say that one thing they got right with the gun wasn't a big deal, because Maine is one of the constitutional carry states in the United States, which means you don't have to have a permit. There are some restrictions. You got to have like certain age. You can't be, is it 18 or 21? People who are 21 and older can carry it without a permit. People 18 or active duty honorably discharged can carry it without a permit. If you're 18 to 20 range, you need a permit and training. I think that's a reasonable compromise as far as gun laws go. I say that to say that meant there should have and could have been in a small town more weapons, but they did have a couple like, well, it's in my car. So I thought that's reasonable too, because you're not going to carry a shotgun into the grocery store.
Well, they mentioned that in the movie too. It's like, oh, well, I wish I had some weapons here now. I got some in my car, I got some in my truck, and I think they even did like a venture out there to try and retrieve them.
Yeah, the biker dude went out there to try to get the shotgun and the shells that were in the guy's truck.
Did not end well for him at all.
Yeah. So, okay. So with that out of the way, we're done talking about, let's talk about cinematography. I thought Frank did an excellent job on this one. I thought the way he did the scenes, there is a tendency in some of the horror movies I've seen parts of that go full Blair Witch. And it's all the shaky cam that I can't watch Blair Witch aside from whether it's a good or bad movie. It makes me dizzy to watch the way they do that. I can't do it. This was well shot. It was smooth, professional. It showed what you needed to show and didn't what you didn't. I thought the camera angles, none of the jump cuts. There were jump scares, but I don't think that's the same thing.
No, it was Ron Schmidt, who is the cinematographer on this movie, did a really great job, pacing wise. And that's kind of an editorial thing too. But how they shot the movie was good. It provided the right amount of tension and release and relaxation in the scenes that they were trying to get you to like kind of bring you down a little bit before they ramped it up again. I thought it was great. It was a brilliantly shot movie. It added the tension in the right places. It added the human element in the right places. And I think that was a lot due to how they placed the camera, where you felt like you were there, like you were the 6th or 7th member in that little tribe, observing what's going on. And I think that's something that's really important in this type of movie, because we start going into tribalism.
Yeah. All right. So we've gotten all that out of the way. So let's talk overall. We obviously know I was down for it. I thought it was well thought out. I don't necessarily mind scary. Don't necessarily mind grim dark in theory. I don't mind grim settings. I just want hopeful at the end. I want, I want you to not be in a, I don't want the light at the end of the tunnel to be the train about to run you over, right?
That's why I didn't warn you.
That's why we didn't warn you. And I mean, we've talked about this with other movies like Cabin in the Woods. Sometimes there's just no happily ever after.
But Cabin in the Woods had that one funny scene as a reminder. It's never the mermaids, and then the mermaid killed him.
Right, and then the stoner and the V card holder get downstairs to figure out how to stop everything from happening, and the elder gods still wake up and off everybody. There's no happy ending in the movie,
which is why I'm not a huge fan. All right, but overall, let's focus on The Mist. Overall, I did not. I was with you up until the end. The ending sucked so bad it ruined everything. I felt like I wasted 2 hours and 6 minutes of my life that I will never get back.
Okay, so that's a joke that was thrown into It Chapter 2 when Stephen King made his little guest appearance, because that's one of the biggest things that is said about Stephen King's books is I didn't like the ending.
I don't like your ending.
And so when we get to It Chapter 2, the novelist who's supposed to be King goes into a pawn shop to get his book or his bike. He's like, oh, and he sees his books over there, and the caretaker, the store owner is Stephen King. It's played by Stephen King. And he's got a stack of this dude's books. He's like, oh, do you want me to sign them? He's like, nah, it's good. Well, what'd you think? I don't like the ending.
I've also told there's a difference with Stephen King pre and post the time the crazy fan ran him over with the car.
There's that. There's also a big difference on his endings when he's doing when he's not doing a horror under the pen name, while he's doing Stephen King, and he's doing the pen name that wrote The Green Mile or Shawshank Redemption or Stand By Me, or also known as The Body in the Woods.
But yeah, so
those
overall,
endings are awesome.
I was not a fan of the ending, which ruined the whole movie for me. I was willing to give it if the ones who had made it to the car, who abandoned the crazy religious lady and made a wild dash for freedom, if they had lived, I'd have been satisfied with the movie.
I think the point of that part is you just gotta hang on. Don't give up. Because, like I said, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, they would have been good. They'd have been saved.
This is where this inherent stubbornness that is every grunt I've ever met comes in.
Guilty.
Like the idea that, okay, well, like, if it comes down to it at the end, just cap yourself because it beats being like, nope, I'm going to fight until I can't fight no more. And if that means like at the end I get captured and tortured, I'm okay. Just know the last words on my lips will be cussing you out.
And he went for that too. The main character, like Thomas Jane's character, he after everything's said and done, which we won't spoil, even though it's movie's damn near 20 years old.
We did kind of hint at it, but
he gets out of the vehicle to accept his fate, to join everybody else. He gets down on his knees, throws his hands out, platoon style. And he's like, "Take me!" He's like throwing amok, and then the lights and the tanks and the soldiers and the gas mask start showing.
Speaking of, did you see the wild reveal on who was on that half track? And first off, like, who knew the army still had half tracks back then? Half tracks are cool, but I didn't know we still had those.
Well, I mean, they gave us the 1960s MP uniform. Why not a half track?
Half tracks are awesome. They look cool. Rule of cool. I gave them a pass.
There's
and
probably
it
some
like
National Guard
Bradley tank, right? Was that a Bradley?
It was. There was a Bradley, and then I think there was an Abrams in there because that's one Abrams. Everything else was a Bradley. So I'm thinking they probably pulled a lot from their local National Guard.
Well, that's just it. It is possible because they were national. If they were National Guardsmen, they did have weird old shit. Like when I deployed to Iraq in 2005 for that deployment, I was issued an A1, M16A1 by my armory, and then when we got in country, they swapped it out for the M16. Sent us to the range in Kuwait, where we had to re-zero, and then sent us north.
We deployed with M118s, armored assault carriers. But all you had was the only armament it had was a 50 cal that you mounted on top, but it was a personnel carrier.
We had the old Humvees that we put the Haji armor, which you can't really call that anymore. What do we call it? I guess hillbilly armor. I guess
Frankenstein.
There we go. That's not what we called it, but some of the things in war zones are not family friendly.
Yeah, we're very colorful in our terminology.
And you have to other the enemy to hate them. So,
yeah.
And you did, speaking of, in the store, like, I think King fundamentally understands that if you other the enemy, it makes it easier to hate and easier to kill. Because what was Carmody doing but othering them? They're pornographers, they are sinners, they are non-believers. Kill them, sacrifice them.
Yeah, dehumanizing the opposition has been a psychological warfare tactic ever, like, since the Egyptians. It's like, hey, they're not human, so it's okay to do these things to them. It's okay to do these massacres, these horrific things that we're about to do them, because they're not human. They're demons. They're monsters. They're the opposition. They're sinners. They're non-believers. They're, the fall of Babylon, whatever. It's and he really capitalized on that too, and it works very well in the movie. I have not read the book. I'm probably going to pick it up. It probably works just as well, and it's probably a little bit more intense.
Yeah, I think so. I think he did a good job on this one, so I can't really complain as far as that goes. Speaking of, like I said, I really did dig the half tracks. It is entirely feasible that a National Guard unit has old equipment, so it's even feasible that the MP unit might still issue the khakis back then. I mean, they did a big push when they modernized the uniforms, forcing everyone to convert, but there was an era where uniforms were kind of a hodgepodge. I remember when we were in Iraq, it was some of us had the DCU, some were wearing the Woodland cami, some of them were wearing the new ACUs that were just coming out. So, like, it was a transitionatory period. So it is entirely feasible that a Guard unit might have issued, because it was iconic. So I was going to give him that. But yeah,
well, like when we deployed, I mean, we were wearing DCUs, but some of us had Woodland camo IBA covers. So, like, it's old war stock. We're going to use it until, like, it gets shredded.
Yeah, so we had green tanks in the middle of a desert, but sure, our camouflage uniforms will make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought they did a good job on a lot of that stuff. I just really hated the ending. So with that, do you have any closing thoughts, Stabby?
Sorry, I was playing in the trivia section of IMDb on this, and I was like, "Oh man, I didn't know that. Oh man, I didn't know that." And I was getting into Stabby mode, doing research. But as for this movie, if you haven't seen it, go see it, and if you have seen it, go watch it again, because every time you watch it after the first time, you notice other little things about it. It's one of those movies where the initial time you're watching it, you're in the scene, you're experiencing the feelings of these characters, you're figuring out which characters you trust, which ones you don't, and you come up on that heartbreaking ending. But as you continue to watch it over and over, you notice other little things in the scenes. And apparently there's a little one that I missed in there, but the spinning book rack in the store was full of different Stephen King novels, and I was like, now I need to go back and try to look for that book rack and like see it with my own two eyeballs. So definitely see it again.
Nick, you let me down. You did not tell me that Thomas Jane, who played David, was also the Punisher. I spent this whole time like,
how did you not know that?
I don't remember actors and actresses' names. So I have said this when we interviewed Rainbow Sun Franks, but when I talk to him, I tell him if I know who the actor is, that means they failed to sell me the character, because I never know and I never care to look it up.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's Thomas Jane, who's probably, I'm going to get hate for this too, but I don't care. He is the best Punisher. Don't get me wrong, John Brethnell, whatever his name is, the modern Punisher, he does a good job. But Thomas Jane is who I wouldn't say I grew up with, because I was a damn adult when he came out. But, like, he's a really good actor, and he's really good. He was a really good Punisher, and he's really good in this movie too. Kind of double backing on what Stabby said, like, watch throughs, seeing it again, revisiting it. First time I saw it, I didn't pay attention to what their MOSs were. because they were on their greens. I didn't look at it. The second and third time, I paid a little bit closer attention. They're all Signal Corps. So I was like, okay, so why would... Because the first time I watched, I was like, why would these low-ranking privates have access to something so top secret?
Well, given what they were doing, trying to open the portal, I could see that involving signals.
Because they're Signal Corps. So yeah, these guys have a TS clearance, and they're probably assigned to that. Yeah, top secret clearance. So that made sense, and I'm like, that's why they were so privy to get the hell out of Dodge, because they knew what was coming.
Or they knew
it turned into a door.
Yes. Well, they didn't know it was coming. They knew it was a possibility, but also in their defense, they didn't know that. That's not why they did it. They were going on leave because they were going to be in 2 weeks going to Iraq.
Yeah. And so there's a little combination going on there, but there's something else going on in there that they don't really throw out there. You know, it's like they give you that cover story. It's like, hey, in 2 weeks we're going to Iraq, so we're going to go out and we're going to live it up. And, you know, outside of basic, you don't go out in your Class A's, you go out in your civvies, you know. But for some reason, they put them in their Class A's, probably for dramatic effect, and it worked. But
yeah, in fact, during the post 9/11 period, there was like you didn't go out in uniform because that made you a target.
Yeah, but it also got you a free lunch at Applebee's. So
I never knew that. I feel like I missed a lot of free lunches.
Well, everybody assumed that, like during that time period, the GWAT, that if you're, you know, you're in your dress uniform, that you're probably going somewhere or coming from somewhere. Yeah, there was a lot of people that were getting free lunches. I'm not saying I partook in that. I'm just saying. But yeah, show up in your A's, get a free dinner or lunch. Someone's going to buy you a drink, probably a beer.
I will say their unit patch looked really cool. I don't know if that's a real unit, but I remember I made a note about that. I thought the unit patch looked cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
I don't even know how to describe it, but the few times they did a close-up of it, I was impressed.
Yeah.
So, all right. Closing thoughts, Nick. We got Stabbies. We keep going back. We're a half an hour over when we said we were going to end it.
Typical. Closing thoughts. It's a great movie. If you want a very nihilist type movie, because that's the only way I can really classify it as nihilist with that ending. It's a good film. It's a really good roller coaster. It's in Nick's top 25 horror movies ever. Yeah, go check it out. There's no aardvarking, there's no canoodling, but there's some really good kills. There's some really interesting creatures. The nightmare fuel spider with the skull face is probably something that's going to haunt my dreams until I die. The acid ash shooting webs, you know, just there's a lot of fun in this movie, which is a weird thing to say about a horror movie. There's a lot of fun. There is a lot of fun, and you really get deep down in the weeds. You feel like you're in the trenches with these characters, and you're feeling not only one side that your biases are going to draw you to, but also you kind of feel the other side too, where you're almost like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I can see how they got there. It's a fun ride, and I'll leave it at that.
I will say I thought it was funny, some of the lines in the beginning. The big storm and all of the real estate agent lady was upset about was the signs got knocked over, so she had to go put her signs back up for the real estate market. And the unsung hero, in addition to Ollie and David, obviously, and Blondie Amanda, Granny, when she had that line that I just came back to me, she was like, oh, that's right. I taught because she was the teacher who's about to retire. It's like, I taught you and your brother. What a bunch of underachievers and wasted talent. And she like peer pressured them into going to the pharmacy to check stuff out. And I'm like, it's almost like she's channeling her inner Catholic nun. The guilt. Stabby, you're muted if you're talking.
I thought Nick's mic was still on. I was saying that was Miss Irene, and she was played by Frances Sternhagen.
Cool. And I will link to the wiki where you can find all the information, and then from there you can follow the wiki trail to all of the characters, and then go check out their other movies. We try to link to those things when we do it. But with that, this is the part where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews really do matter, and they help the right readers and the right viewers and the right comic book enjoyers find the right products. So tell a friend, tell 100 friends, write a report, write a review, whatever you got to do to spread the word. It really does make a difference. And with that, you can follow us on our link tree at linktr.ee linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. We're linked to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumble, the YouTubes, the TikToks. Maybe that's still up in the air. The Twitter, the website, the Discord. That's new. Blasters and Blades Facebook page and Facebook group. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. And she gets really lonely and nobody ever writes her, so send her some hate mail, people.
I think they're all scared.
That might be it. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-host duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee and the decaf for Nick until it flows out of their eyeballs and they have to swim in a puddle of coffee. Use the code podcast grunts. Links in the show notes. We get 10% off. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. If you're international, just because it's good, check them out over there on the Amazon. You can buy it over there too. Ships international. We don't get a kickback on that. So just put in a review. Hey, Blast and Blaze podcast sent us. Maybe they read it. I don't know. The owner's a busy dude. And with that, I will say thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And as we hit the end button, this is where I tell you, go buy Nick's comics too. We don't pimp his stuff nearly enough. And with that, I'm going to hit the end button. Wait for it.